Hello, hello, everybody. How's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. I am the owner of the Calgary Language Nerds. My team of tutors and I, we teach a wide variety of foreign languages to people of all ages and all levels of fluency. So whether you're a child, whether you're a teenager or an adult, or regardless of your level, maybe you're a beginner, intermediate, super advanced, it doesn't matter. We have a tutor that can help you with your foreign language and help you achieve whatever fluency goals and whatever outcomes you have in the language that you're trying to learn. And welcome to this course that I've put together on how to learn another language. Now, there are a few housekeeping items that I would like to begin with today that I believe are important to mention today. The first one is that I'm trying to make this course as useful as possible. My goal is to create a course that takes a language learner from an absolute beginner all the way to becoming quite advanced in the language that they're trying to learn. And I would like to create a course that works and is effective for a wide variety of different languages. To my knowledge, this is the first time that anyone has tried to take on such a project. I don't think others have done it. And again, to my knowledge, based on what I've seen, I don't think that there are any programs right now out there that someone could enter the program as a pure beginner and literally follow the program and achieve a very high level of fluency once they have completed that program. I don't think that really exists. Now, there are language schools that offer different levels of classes, but it's pretty common for people to go through every single level of classes that are offered at a language school, and yet they don't end up with a super advanced level. I know that there are applications such as Duolingo and Babbel and such, and people sometimes finish their Duolingo tree or they go through everything, and yet they're not super advanced. And so, based on what I've seen, I don't think there is anything that allows language learners to follow it and achieve that very advanced level, even if they start from a very beginner level. So that's my goal. And I'm going to do everything I can to put such a course together. Now, in order for that to happen, I would highly appreciate feedback on the course. Things you like, things you don't like, things that would make it better. I would really appreciate some feedback. So if you go to azrenthelanguagenerd.com/free course, scroll down a bit. There's on the page, there's a section where you're going to see all the levels for the course. Right in that section, there's a button to email me. I would appreciate any feedback that you have on the course so I can continue to make this course better. I do plan, even after the course is completely done and all the 5 levels and everything 6 levels are posted, I do plan to make adjustments and edit things, tweak things. I plan to do that based on the feedback that I receive and based on, of course, changes that I believe would be beneficial to the people going through the course. So your feedback will help make this course the best course that it can possibly be. The second thing I'd like to point out, I'm going to share my screen for this one. I haven't explicitly said it, but this is a great time to point this out. So every single one of these units, as you've noticed, has a vocabulary section, right? So for example, if we scroll up, here's our family vocabulary section, right? Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, cousin, nephew, niece, granddaughter, grandson, son, daughter, child. And every chapter has roughly 10 new words, something to that effect. But, and actually sometimes even more, because then you might even get into, for example, here, possessive adjectives, my, your, his, her, etc. But what I want to encourage you to do is I want to encourage you not to limit yourself to these words in every chapter. Yes, go and learn these words. Yes, do that. But I want to encourage you to learn other things too, even if it has nothing to do with family. The goal of this program is to create a perfect marriage, as perfect of a marriage as possible, right? A very good marriage, let's say, between structure, where it's like learn this, learn this, learn this, step one, step two, do this, do that, do this activity, but also a little bit of unstructure. And that marriage of the two will create the ideal, the optimal learning environment, I think, for the vast majority of people. So, for instance, one of the places where there's a little bit of flexibility is when we get to all of these listening activities. There's who knows what video you end up finding. You guys have seen it when I YouTube things. There's so many types of videos that show up. So who knows where you land? Who knows what you bump into? Who knows what you find? Who knows what percentage of the video you understand, right? Who knows if we go over here, here it is. When you're watching these videos, remember you're writing down 10 to 20 timestamps for words and phrases that you basically didn't know. Who knows what kinds of words and phrases you're going to end up learning? So I'm trying to create such a program, but in order for that to happen, where you have the nice balance between high structure, but also a little bit of chaos and unpredictability and and learning in a non-structured way, you have to make sure that even you have to sometimes go beyond the scope of what I'm talking about in the chapter in question. And that's perfectly okay. And I highly encourage you to do it. And I think that's going to be the best way to use this program. Have the structure of the program, but make sure you're doing stuff out of the structure of the program too. Do other things too that maybe I didn't even talk about. Maybe I didn't even mention it, but go do it. That's going to be beneficial for you. And it's going to allow you to use this program in the most effective way possible. Now, the last housekeeping item I'd like to mention, I'm going to take a sip of water first. The last housekeeping item that I would like to mention is, oh shoot, what was my last housekeeping item? Right after I took my sip of water, it slipped out of my mind. Oh, I remember. It may be beneficial for some of you. It's related to what I just said. It may be beneficial for some of you to be using another, I would say, structured program for learning a language on top of this program here. So this is a pretty structured program, but it might be beneficial for you to have a separate thing you're doing outside of this course that is also very structured. For example, maybe you're following the structure of an app. You're following the order of things that the app teaches you. You are taking a standard class where it's a weekly group class. Maybe you're doing private tutoring. Maybe you are using an audio program such as Pimsleur or Michelle Thomas or whatever the case may be. Maybe you're using Babbel languages. Maybe you're using whatever you're using, right? Maybe you're using, does the mimic method still exist? I'm not sure. I think that's primarily pronunciation though, but regardless, I think there can be benefits to that because you'll have the overlap of how do I say this? The other program you use will have some overlap with what you're learning in this program. And my program, this one here, will have some overlap with the other program that you're using. They're going to overlap from time to time, and they're going to reinforce each other. And by using two programs, what's going to happen for many of you, what's going to happen is that you're going to be learning about different types of things. Maybe there's something that you learned through an application that I just don't talk about. That's also very, very important. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I brought it up later in the program, but some other application brought it up earlier and that was the right decision for you. So I highly recommend that. I think it can be beneficial for you. When I learn languages, I'm often doing that. I will have not a million, not like, let's say, what do I typically do? I probably use something like 3 major strategies, 3 major kinds of programs when I'm learning a language. I might take, for instance, for Mandarin, I am doing a few major things. I take classes at the University of Calgary. That's one thing I do. I do casual language exchanges with like a language partner or sometimes in language exchanges online that I find, or maybe with friends I know in my city. I'll do like language exchanges, casual practice. And and then I just do, I would say, self-study. So I'll like listen to music and look up some lyrics. I'll watch a video at home on YouTube or something. I will, I'll see someone post something on Facebook in Mandarin and I'll try and read it. Those are kind of 3 major things I'm doing, and they all sort of tie in together and help me. So I believe if you can even add one more structured program that you use in tandem with this one, I think there can be benefit. There can be a benefit to it. It's optional, but something that's worth considering. When you're doing that, don't forget, I know we haven't started this whole, chapter 3 yet, but I believe these things are important when I'm saying, just don't forget the general rule of thumb that I put together of how much time to put in towards learning the language and what to spend your time on. So as a quick recap, you want to do, as a benchmark, kind of It's not really a minimum, but I would say it's the recommendation, I would say, the recommended minimum, right? 1 hour a week of listening/video watching practice with the activities of writing down the timestamps and asking a speaking partner or someone what they mean. 1 hour of traditional homework. This could be using a textbook or taking classes. This could be using an application. This could be things of that nature. Could be reviewing your notes, could be flashcards, right? You want to do 1 hour of speaking per week with your speaking partner or your tutor. Passive listening whenever you have time. So when you're cooking, listen to music in the background, whatever the case is. And of course, we can scroll down just a bit. The revisit and review happens once every, let's say, 8 to 12 weeks. Right? So when you're picking out your other program, it's probably going to fall into this traditional homework category, maybe into extra speaking. Who knows where it falls into, but count that towards the overall study that you're doing. Okay. How long has this been going? Let me see. Can I see how long these recordings have been going on my laptop? Probably somewhere. I just don't know where I would look for that. Okay. Well, that's fine. Let me reshare my screen again. And let's discuss the actual topic of today, which is work life. Now, this is a big chapter. This is a heavy chapter with a lot of content, and this might take you a long, long time to complete. This might take longer than the other chapters. And you could theoretically go pretty infinitely deep into this topic. So it's going to be your choice how deeply you study it. So considering the fact that this program is primarily targeted towards adults, or perhaps teenagers could also use this and use it effectively. There's a good chance that your work life, which by the way has a typo that should be probably 2 words, I'm going to fix that afterwards for the workbook purchasers. It's a pretty important part of our lives. I think, isn't there a statistic that we spend something like 50% of our waking hours working, or 33% or something like that? It's a very big part of our lives. And so I think it's important to be able to talk about your work life. Yeah, this should be fixed. I don't like that typo. Okay, I'll fix that after. So on our work life. So what's going to happen here, as usual, we have our vocabulary section, and you're going to speak with your language partner / your tutor, or perhaps you'll use YouTube or Google, and heck, maybe you'll even know some of these words if you're using this program in tandem with another language learning program. Maybe you already have learned some of these words, but you're going to go out and you're going to learn these words in your target language: company, employee, boss, coworker, team, client, salary, schedule, part-time, full-time, document, meeting, presentation, and project. Now, I would highly recommend, because everybody's got a different job, and I'm sure there are lots of words that are quite important in your line of work. And if you were speaking with someone in the target language, you would have to know how to say those words that are not on this list. And heck, maybe they're not even high frequency words. Maybe they're not used very often. So for instance, I used to run a window cleaning business, and there were quite a few words that I just needed to know in relation to that. And when I didn't know them, I remember I was in Peru, and I didn't know how to talk about my work, and it was so challenging. I felt so dumb because I couldn't explain to people what I did. It was really tough. I didn't want to say run a business. I didn't want to say window cleaning. I didn't want to say franchise because I worked at a franchise. I didn't want to say my position title in the franchise. I didn't want to talk about my team. I didn't know how to say residential window cleaning, so it was residential. I didn't know how to say it wasn't commercial. Like, I didn't know anything, and I was so clueless. And at that point, when I was in Peru, I'd already been studying. I was already kind of comfortable in Spanish, and I couldn't believe I didn't know how to talk about my work. And the reason was that at the time, I was just using other people's programs, and there was nothing personalized. Like, I've tried to make this program in a personalized kind of fashion, but the other programs I used were not personalized whatsoever. And so words like franchise, run a business, these are not words that come up in a typical class, for instance, or a typical program. So I highly encourage you to figure out what technical terms are very important for your line of work that you would perhaps use with other people when conversing with them in the target language. And you go learn those and learn how to use them by asking your tutor, your language partner, Googling it, YouTubing it, right? Asking someone. because you're going to need to know those. And so the vocabulary for the work chapter here is probably going to be a little bit long, I would think, right? Many people ask me how to remember vocabulary and like what do I do? So for me, here's a couple things I would recommend. The first thing you have to understand is that you are never, never, ever, ever, no matter how advanced you are never going to actively remember every word that you ever study. In fact, I'm going to go a step further. You will never actively remember the majority of the words you ever study. So if you know 10,000 words, let's say, you only actively know them roughly 2,000 or 3,000. I don't know what the number is, but it's not a very big number. It's not a huge percentage. I'm sure there's research on what that exact percentage is. I unfortunately don't know, but I know that the number is quite small. 2 to 3,000 would not surprise me whatsoever out of 10,000, for instance. So imagine what that means. 20 to 30% is a good benchmark to use in your mind. If you even know, let's say you know 100 words, and you're like, I keep forgetting all the words I know. Well, yeah, because you're only actually going to be able to use roughly 20 to 30 of them. It's just a fact of how our brains work. In fact, this is how your mother tongue works too, your first language, whatever language you speak best. You only actually use a very small percentage of words on a day-to-day basis. That's just a fact. You understand way more words than you use. And you have way more words in your head that you kind of know what they mean, or you like, if someone says it in context, like, oh yeah, I understand that, but you don't really know what it means. Like you would never actually be able to use the word. So a great example would be, I remember roughly a year, maybe 2 years ago, my car had a problem with the high pressure fuel pump. Even now, you might have noticed I had to think about the word. When they told me there's a problem with the high pressure fuel pump, I basically understood what that meant. I was like, oh, okay. So there's like a pump. It must like pump fuel at a high pressure and helps the car run. I knew that I wasn't getting much power in the car. So I was like, oh, it made sense. I understood it. But that was never a word I'd be able to use. Other examples would be sometimes someone will say something and I understand exactly what they said, but I would never speak that way. I think all of us can probably relate to that. So what's the connection to vocabulary? Well, the connection is that one of the biggest mistakes language learners make is they try to drill all these new words, right? They have all these words and they try to drill them into their mind and they get so frustrated when they don't remember most of them. Well, here's the thing. You're never going to remember most of the words when you quiz yourself. Or when you try and speak, you're going to forget most of the words that you actually know. And when the other person you're speaking with uses the word or reminds you, oh, that's the word, then you remember. But when you have to use it spontaneously, you just don't. You just don't remember and you don't know how to use it. It's just a fact of how our brains work. It's a fact of language. So the biggest piece of advice I can give you is you only need to really know. Basically a benchmark you want to provide yourself is if you ever quiz yourself on new words, or if you're ever looking at how many things you actually know and you're estimating it, whether actually in real life and you're counting it because you're analytical, or you're just intuitively thinking about it, basically realize, are you comfortable with 20% of the things that you've learned so far in the language? If you're good with 20%, you're doing pretty darn good. If the other 80% is kind of in your brain, but not fully, but you kind of get it and like you feel like it's still solidifying, good job. You're on the right track. It sounds like a low percentage, but that's just fine. That's just how it is. Once you realize that, you're not going to be nearly as hard as on yourself as remembering all these words and memorizing them, and you're going to be okay. Okay. I will give a couple of pieces of advice anyway for what you might do to help that retention go up. So doing the 8 to 12 weeks reviews that are built into this program, that immediately is going to help you with retention. That's going to be one of the best things you can do. It's kind of like a spaced repetition. Feel free to Google that, spaced repetition. It's a pretty useful memory strategy for not just language learning, but for anything you have to memorize. Pretty useful strategy and effective strategy. it's kind of like a spaced repetition in a way, what I built into this course. It's not really a spaced repetition because spaced repetition is not based on intervals. I've done this at a very set interval, but it will still work. It'll still have a similar kind of effect. The other thing you can do is you can do some flashcards if you'd like to. Maybe you do some flashcards for, in fact, if we even go into level 0, and we kind of go to the traditional section. Where is it? Where is it? Did I skip it? I must have skipped it. Oh, here it is. Right. I think I mentioned, here they are, flashcards. So flashcards is the great way to practice. You might quiz yourself. That's a way to practice. I often like to write journal entries, and I try to use the words I know. That's a way to practice. When you're doing things like the listening comprehension exercises in the program, you're going to hear a lot of words that you know, and that's going to reinforce what you know. So that's a practice. I believe in a multifaceted, multi-pronged revision approach where you're revising what you know in a wide variety of different ways. Some of them that are more traditional and more study oriented, like flashcards or things like that, and some of them that are much more organic, such as watching a video and suddenly they happen to use a word that you actually learned that same day. I like to mix and match the two. And by mixing both very academic kind of strategies and some more organic strategies, with time, your brain will remember more. Okay. Let's see, should we wrap this video up here? No, let's keep this going. Let's try and wrap up this whole job section together. This has been a very heavy kind of topic and heavy video today, but hopefully it's still useful. Take lots of notes. Feel free to rewatch the video and take notes. There's a bug over here. There we go. The bug is gone. Goodbye, Mr. Bug. I'm in the basement right now, so sometimes there's little bugs that fly in from, anyway, it's not important. So where were we? The next section here is verbs that are related to your jobs. So I've written a few here: writing emails, meeting clients, answering the phone. But you're going to have to figure out what verbs you need. If you're a painter, you're going to need very different verbs than a teacher. If you're in sales, you're going to need very different verbs than a nurse. If you're an engineer, you're going to need very, very different verbs than if you work in a call center. There's very different verbs that you need depending on what kind of job you have. So I've written 3 here, but ultimately this is your job now to go and make a list on your own accord. If you end up purchasing the workbook, you'll have some pages like this provided for you to just fill them in by hand or to type it in. Or of course, if you don't purchase the workbooks off my website, then you can simply do this in your own notebook and that'll work just fine. Okay. When you learn these words, as always, for all new vocabulary, it's kind of the same strategies to learn them. Ask your tutor / language partner and go through it together, or simply Google it / YouTube it and find a blog post or something like that that tells you how to say these things. If you do end up Googling it or YouTubing it, then what you may want to do is you may want to speak with your language exchange partner and just confirm that it's accurate, and then off you go. Okay, before we go into more vocabulary, I just realized something as I was talking. I'm going to stop the screen share. Something I've realized, and this might sound really silly, and I think this is going to be a useful thing to do today. I realized that many people are not very good at YouTubing and Googling. They don't know what to YouTube or Google. So let me actually demonstrate this so I can show you. So for example, let's say we're looking for these job vocabularies, these words related to your line of work. I want you to pause the video and think about, this is a good exercise to do. We're going to pause, and I would like you to write down 8 different search queries of what you may search, 8 different things that you may search to learn more about the job vocabulary related to your job. So pause the video, think about it. I really want you to. I think it's a useful exercise. Okay. All right, you've now unpaused. Welcome back. So here's a couple options. You might search like work-related vocabulary in Spanish. Or maybe you're learning Mandarin, right? So now we have jobs, professions and jobs, Spanish business vocabulary, interesting, right? So then you might search business vocabulary, Spanish. That's a pretty good one. Here we go, lots of videos on that, right? Maybe you're learning Mandarin. business vocabulary Mandarin. Oops, I spelled that wrong. There we go. Lots of videos here. You can take your pick, right? Take your pick. You might even search something as simple as maybe you search that on Google, business vocabulary in maybe let's do French. I don't know. Let's pick a different Japanese. And boom, lots of websites that'll take you through it, right? Lots and lots and lots. It'll take you through it. You may search something. There's lots of different things you may search, right? You may even search specifically, you may use a translator. So let's say you're trying to say write emails. So you're like, okay, my favorite translator is deepl.com. If it loads, there we go. It's slightly limited in terms of languages, like it's missing some key languages, which is a shame, but they do keep adding new languages every few months. So by the time you watch this, they may have more languages on here. So let's say you're learning Danish and you're like, okay, how do I say write? And then there we go, it gives it to you. It won't read it out for you, unfortunately, but if you highlight this, I believe, oh no, it doesn't actually, sorry. Oh, but it looks like there's a little button over here. Oh, this has gone German. I want English. English. There we go. But I believe I wonder if we swap this. What if we go copy and we go German to or Danish to English? I wonder if you can read it out to yourself. Danish. Oh, here we go. Looks like there is a little button over here. You can listen. Oh, there's a little thing down here too. Listen, I didn't see that. That's a new feature. That wasn't there the last time I was on this website. They keep updating it actually, which is really cool. And it gets better and better and better every month or two. So you might just look it up in here and then confirm it, make sure it's correct with your language exchange partner. Because remember, sometimes these translators aren't perfect and they're not the best. They're fine, but they're not the best sometimes. They're not accurate. If you ever search up how to say excited in French, it's going to give you the word excité, which does not really mean excited, or rather it does, but people now use it for aroused. So you're going to tell someone, I'm excited for my brother to come over. And what you're really saying is, I'm so aroused that my brother's coming over. And that's not good. That's not what you want to say. So make sure you confirm everything with your language exchange partner to avoid those kinds of mistakes. Okay. I think this is a good place to wrap this video here, because there's a lot left in this chapter and I don't want this video to be crazy, crazy long. So let's wrap this up. We'll continue off with this work unit in the next video. So thank you for watching this. As a reminder, I'm trying to make this program as effective as I can. And so I would appreciate any feedback. Please visit azrenthelanguagenerd.com/free course, AZ or ZREN, thelanguagenerd.com/free course. Scroll down near the bottom. There's the section where all the videos are to be found. And in that section, there's a little button where you can email me and provide feedback. So have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.